Hi guys, this is RASHMI AZAD from GGSIP University and my topic is deontology. Before moving on to our main topic, let's take a look on the historical origin of deontology. Whenever we mention deontology, it is impossible that Immanuel Kant won't be mentioned. He was a German philosopher who avidly defended the ethical theory of deontology. He believed that ethical actions follow universal moral laws such as don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. He also contributed many wonderful and brilliant ideas to the philosophical study of ethics. Now, what is deontology? The name comes from the Greek word deon, which means duty. It is a normative ethical theory that uses rules to distinguish right from wrong. Any system involving a clear set of rules is a form of deontology, which is why some people call it a rule based ethic. Thus simple to apply. It just requires that people follow the rules and do their duty, and that is why it fits really well with our natural intuition that what is morally right or not. We can further categorize this ethical theory into different types, that is, categorical imperative, divine command theory, intuitive command or agent centered theory, patient based, and lastly, contractarian. I will explain these theories later in the video. Now, all deontological theories judge the morality of choices by criteria different from the states of affairs those choices bring about. The most familiar forms of deontology and also the forms presenting the greatest contrast to consequentialism hold that some choices cannot be justified by their effects, that no matter how morally good their consequences, some choices are morally forbidden. So let's discuss these theories. First, we have is categorical imperative or duty based ethics. According to Immanuel Kant, a categorical imperative would be one which represented an action as objectively necessary in itself, without reference to any other purpose. So, what is an imperative? An imperative is a command. So, pay your taxes is an imperative, as are stop kicking me and don't kill animals. Categorical imperatives, these command unconditionally. Example, don't cheat on your taxes. Even if you want to cheat and doing so would serve your interest, you may not cheat. So, what is the connection between morality and categorical imperatives? Morality must be based on the categorical imperative because morality is such that you are commanded by it and is such that you cannot opt out of it or claim that it does not apply to you. Now, there are three forms of categorical imperative: the universal law, which says that act only according to the maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. And the next is treat humans as ends in themselves. That is, act so that you treat humanity both in your own person and in the person of every other human being, never merely as a means, but always at the same time as an end. And the last one is act as if you live in a kingdom of ends. Now, this says that act as if you were, through your maxim, a law making member of a kingdom of ends. You might be curious to know that what is a maxim. A maxim is a principle that underlines or informs an act or set of actions. In easier words, a maxim is a rule that connects an action to the reasons for the action. That is, a motivation or goal or context. Let's understand this with the help of an example. I ought to rob from the rich in order to give to the poor. So here the action is rob from the rich and reason for the action is to give to the poor. Basically our reason of doing the right thing. To be consistent with the categorical imperative, the actions maxim the ethical duties, and the ethical duties are mainly divided into two types: perfect duties and imperfect duties. A perfect duty is inflexible. Do not kill innocent people is an example of a perfect duty. You can't obey it a little bit. Either you kill innocent people or you don't. There's no middle ground. And on the other hand, imperfect duties do allow for some middle ground. Learn about the world around you is an imperfect duty because we can all spend different amounts of time on the education and each be fulfilling our obligation. How much we commit to imperfect duties is up to us. So next we have is divine command theory or command of God. An act is morally required just because it is commanded by God. and immoral just because God forbids it, or something is good because God wills it, not because God recognizes it to be good. The idea behind this theory is that God commands is objectively good. Example 10 commandments, and another example is 5 pillars or the 5 precepts. Let's move on to our next theory, that is agent centered theory or duty based theory. Focuses on the person performing the action rather than the actions that they perform. And this can be further divided into two types, one where the focus is on the mental state of the agent, and another where the focus is on the nature of the actions agent. And next is patient theory, which deals with rights and says that an action is wrong if it violates a person's rights. Example, the right to life, liberty, and property, or the pursuit of happiness, or against being used only as a means for producing good consequences without one's consent. And last theory we have is contractarian theory. It is basically the concept that for a society to arise and maintain order, a morality based set of rules must be agreed upon. This theory has influenced the modern government and is heavily involved with societal law. So, these were all the theories, and it is best understood, which is deontology. It is best understood in contrast with consequentialism. Deontology holds that an action's rightness or wrongness depends on its conformity to a certain moral norm, regardless of the consequence. That is right versus good. Whereas consequentialism holds that an action's rightness or wrongness depends on the consequence it causes, example, happiness, pain, etc. So one focuses on moral and the other focuses on the consequences. Like everything has its pros and cons, likely pros and cons of deontology is the pros are humanitarian principle, motivation, justice, objective guidelines, and cons are selfish, motivated by pleasure, consequences under consideration, conflict of duties. So that was all about deontology, and thanks for watching.